Our next guest on the program, our first guest on the program today on the line, Odyssey NFL insider Ross Tucker, as Insider Calls presented by BetQL. Download the free BetQL app right now and get instant access to the industry's most advanced suite of sports betting tools right at your fingertips. Ross, how you doing, buddy? John Dickinson for Steiny and Goose here as well.
Ross.
I'm doing awesome. You guys selling the Brock Purdy merch? That's amazing.
Yeah, grab yourself a hoodie. grab yourself a hoodie on your way out, Ross.
Dude, that isn't good. Like, honestly, I love stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, good for that kid. Good, I mean, it's just so awesome. As a guy that was undrafted, I'm going to try to not hold it against Brock Purdy. Everybody's like, oh, he's Mr. Irrelevant. You know how many guys would die to actually get drafted? He got drafted. Somebody actually really wanted him enough to draft him. So good for him, though, man. I love the underdog. I love guys like Purdy that get the opportunity and play well. I don't know if he's like a long-time starter in the NFL. Like that will all play itself out. But he sure as heck has bought himself some years in the league, with the way he's played, which is awesome. I mean, he's gonna make a real living of this for at least a few years, maybe for a long time. Maybe he's more than that. Maybe he's a starter. I'm pumped for him.
Yeah, and Ross, I mean, that's where I really wanted to start. I mean, Purdy Mania is here in the Bay, and you go back to the Seattle game a week ago, and he is able to play well in that environment. Not what it used to be up there, but and the Niners had a good game plan and all of that. But what have you made of just his ability to continue to make plays in the context of the 49ers offense as he did in that Thursday night game?
So, first question. He's played 2.5 games, right?
Yes. Well,
11 quarters.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much 3, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, because I just think it's amazing. I mean, that's still a pretty small sample size, but it's also a very rare sample size. I mean, it's small sample size, but it's the only sample size, and it's rare how well he's played given the circumstances. I guess my question for you guys is how much of it is just strictly Brock Purdy and how much of it is these 11 quarters have come on the end of what is like a 6 or 7 game win streak, right?
Yeah, they've won 7 in a row. It's a great question, Ross, and I'll say this. I thought up until the point, the inception of Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan's claim to fame was, I took Jimmy Garoppolo. He quarterbacked my team to a Super Bowl and 2 NFC Championship games, and now insert Brock Purdy, and as somehow Ross, he takes him to the Super Bowl. I was telling Steiny, and I know this is not Kyle's goal, but man, how could you not look at him along with Brock? You already mentioned how great that story is. How could Kyle not just say, bow down and kiss my ring because I took Mr. Irrelevant to a Super Bowl?
Well, there's a lot to that. It would be very impressive. Honestly, man, the fact that, like, Nick Mullins, I saw him the other day. He's the backup in Minnesota, Beathard in Jacksonville. I mean, the real feather in Kyle's cap. And I'm to the point now where I really only think there's 2 teams that have a chance to go to the Super Bowl from the NFC. I just can't see the Vikings winning 3 playoff games. And I can't see the Cowboys winning 3 road playoff games. I mean, the Cowboys have won, 2 playoff games the last 25 years?
You're right.
To envision them winning 3 on the road is kind of hard to do. I have a tough time picturing that. Right now, kind of feels like it's either going to be the Eagles or the Niners. And that would be a heck of a matchup. I think so far so good as far as Purdy's concerned, but they're still going to throw some new stuff at him these next couple weeks. Right now, when it's a young quarterback like this, defenses throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, to try to see what sticks, right? I almost wonder And I'm sure they do, but I wonder how much time they spend, talking to the Iowa State coaches or other coaches in that conference, like the Big 12, to try to get a better feel for the things that he struggled with. I'm sure they're making those calls,
Well, and the interesting part is this game with Washington coming up on Saturday. And, I mean, this would be the best defense that he's faced to this point, although you can run on them a little bit as well. And the Niners are going to want to do that. But what do you think Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio and those guys will have cooked up for Purdy that may be a little bit different?
That's a good question. Really good question. And they are a good defense. So this will be a challenge for Purdy, and they're getting Chase Young back.
And it's almost a free look. They might end up playing him in a playoff game, too. So it's almost one of those looks that may set up the next look, if you will.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that, like anybody else, they'd like to be able to get to him with straight rush, right? I mean, you always – you don't want to have to bring pressure unless you have to bring pressure. I think people are going to try to do the same thing, which is try to stop the run so that you get Purdy in the obvious passing downs as much as you can, and then see if you can get there with your straight rush, because I don't think the Niners are necessarily a great pass-protecting unit. The problem is Kyle's doing such a good job with these bootlegs and with play action that even when they're kind of trying to get them to have to get these obvious passing downs, they're trying to stop the run. On these downs when they're loading the box to stop the run, they're hitting them with the boot. They're hitting them with the play action, and they're getting chunk plays out of it. So you're never really able to get in that position.
Ross, let me ask you this, because I'm with you. Dallas is out. I really believe, just as a fan, I want to see the Niners at Philly. You were an O-lineman, former NFL player. I was watching the Eagles-Bears game. I said, wow, when Hurts got tackled, I said, is that a separated shoulder? Because that's the play it would look like it happened on. He's out this Saturday against Dallas. But when you hear about, are you so sure that there won't be any residue of this particular injury and he'll be ready to go? How concerned should Eagle fans be about Jalen Hurts' situation?
Well, so there's a couple different things in play here, right? Number one, I'm not overly concerned about the shoulder injury as is, because he stayed in the game and he actually probably played better than he had all game in the fourth quarter after the injury. So I think the shoulder's not that bad, right? However, there's a couple of different things. Number one, if they lose to the Cowboys, do they put him back in against the Saints after he's had a couple weeks to let it heal? Because I don't think they want to get it to the point where they have to beat the Giants in Week 18,
right,
to be able to get home field advantage and win the NFC East. You don't want to make it a one-game situation. So ideally Minshew gets them a win over the Cowboys, which would be amazing on Christmas Eve if he's able to do it. But let's say he doesn't, then do they put him in against the Saints or not? And if he plays against the Saints or not, what if he takes a bad shot in that game and lands on it? And he got another problem, Although at that point, if they win the game, he wouldn't have to play against the Giants. He'd have the byes. He'd have 3 weeks again. The other part of it is something that Kyle actually was talking about this week, right? Which is he's not a big believer in having guys sit out a lot. Well, theoretically, if Minshew can beat the Cowboys Saturday, or maybe the Eagles just have enough faith in Minshew, or he plays well enough that they give Hurts more rest and they have Minshew play against the Saints the next week, and the Eagles clinch, is Hurts going over a month before he played in that first playoff game?
Wow.
Yeah, it would be.
That would scare me a little bit, just in terms of the rust. That's a long time.
Yeah, their first playoff game would be at the earliest January 21st. It would be the 21st or the 22nd in that second week if they end up getting the bye. So they'd be a month away from basically today as far as that would go if he ends up getting shut down and not playing to that point. Ross, great stuff, my man. We really appreciate it.
Happy holidays.
Likewise, guys. Thank you for having me.